All right, folks, it's July 28th, 2026. It's our Tuesday update. We do this every Tuesday, Thursday, 10 p.m. Eastern. The website, zachrector.com. We just really appreciate your support and appreciate you for tuning in here in the middle of the bear market drawdown. Been absolutely brutal for XRP and for the broader crypto ecosystem as a whole. But you can really just sit back here if you've been through this bear market cycle before. This is my third bear market. You've seen it before. Here it comes again. We just dollar cost average. I was thinking about this earlier today. We call our senators and blast them to pass the Clarity Act. We dollar cost average and we chill. That's life. You know what I'm saying? We take care of our family. We get what we need to get done. We dollar cost average into crypto. We're pounding the phone lines and we're going to vote out every single one of these sellout politicians that sells out the American people. We don't care if you have a D or an R next to your name. If you sold out the American people, you're gone. And to our international audience that is fighting the good fight as well too, we say God bless your fight, your effort. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. No matter if you're in the United States of America, fighting this fight for regulations and rules of the road in 2026 seems so silly, but here we are. Meanwhile, if you're tuning in from Russia, I don't know if we have anybody from Russia, you have clarity. We have Russia getting clarity. We have everybody else getting clarity done before the United States of America. And we just watch the world stage play out. We try to laugh and get a chuckle, but I'm not going to sidestep. I'm not going to deny. I'm not going to try to hide from the fact that it has been painful. This bear market has absolutely capitulated a lot of people. I was just talking with my barber earlier today about how it made me stop trading. I traded oil. I got into oil long, hit my stop loss. I said, enough is enough. I'm going to take a break from trading this market. Now, did I sell my long-term holdings? Am I stepping away from crypto? Do I need a break from these markets or my work? Absolutely not. I love my work. I live this every single day. I'm having a lot of fun doing this, even in the middle of the bear market. I'm still producing children. My garden's still growing. Our bags are still growing, and we just love our work. So thank God for the ability to be living through this moment and to be part of the resistance. Will we succeed? We're going to get rich or die trying. Shout out 50 Cent, right? Now, I don't think a 50 cent XRP is coming, but I do think that XRP drops below $1 one last time. And that's what I'm trying to prepare our community for, is that the pivot back into a bull run comes whether we get the Clarity Act or not. We're going to break it down for you guys here tonight, the 2029 timeline. Am I giving up on XRP? Oh, now we're pushing it out? No. In every video, there's a different context. Sometimes we're talking about what's going to happen over the next 24 hours. Sometimes we're talking about what's going to happen over the next maybe couple weeks, next couple years. And in today's video, we're going to take a zoomed out approach. This next cycle, what happens? And what's so awesome is that none of us know where XRP is going to go. I don't pretend to know where XRP is going to go. You don't pretend to know where XRP is going to go. There are some people that pretend to know where XRP is going to go. We'll see who ends up being right. But are we going to be at $1? No. Oh gosh, no. And in tonight's update, we break down how even just going back to these conservative levels is life-changing gains for a lot of people who play it right. And for many of us, it becomes generational wealth because we know how to set this up. And just like I was doing today, I'm preparing to move on real estate. I'm preparing and moving on private equity. We've been moving on these other opportunities. We've been growing our businesses. We've been, making sure our health is dialed in during this bear market. I told you guys, I'm making more babies. Literally. Are we getting gains on crypto? I'm sorry, it's not happening right now. More children? Yes, God bless it. You know what I'm saying? And we're not going to stop. See, I come here in the middle of the bear market. I bring this energy to show you guys that I'm not leaving. It's not just that, though. I'm still throwing all of my last few pennies that I got at this market, at investing in digital assets and at getting ready for when we go back into a bull run. Did we, probably miss some opportunities? Could we have played the last bull market a little bit better? You're always going to say that. And see, you look back, you reflect, you learn, and you keep it moving forward. And I want you guys to look forward. Do we have chop? Do we have capitulation? Do we have blood in the streets? Do we have a war? Yes. Do we have inflation? Yes. We have all of the above. Are we going to get aliens next? Yes. The aliens are going to be here. Yeah, you're seeing it. We joked about it. We were ahead of schedule, like with a lot of things. And that can get you actually off guard with your investments, which is where we find ourselves, is that as long as we don't over leverage, we're not in trouble. As long as we don't get ahead of ourselves, we won't be in trouble. As long as we secure it, let it ride, we know where this is going. We've invested in these digital assets while they're discounted from fundamental value. And all of this is being done by design with market makers in coordination with banks that are stalling up the Clarity Act, all to get retail out of this life-changing opportunity to understand this technology. I cannot promise you life-changing wealth. I can't promise you generational wealth, right? A lot of people who have big bags of XRP are going to fumble that bag after they make a big bag off of XRP. And this is why we don't sit back. During the bull run, did we get excited? You better believe it. Did we have a party? Absolutely. But did we, for 1 minute let our guard drop? No. We were absolutely dialed in. Now, we didn't get to the levels where a lot of us are ready to maybe sell, take a little bit of profit. But for most of us, myself included, we're going to be taking loans against this. Because we understand how to build wealth. We're not going to sell off these positions. We're going to take a loan against them. But we're going to put it into a business that we understand. We're not pretenders like a lot of these so-called operators out here. How's your program working out? Oh boy. We've been asking that question for a few years, since the last bear market. And now we're seeing exchanges go down. Now we're seeing the record amount of hacks that have taken place in 2026. We're going to talk about this. All of the flush out, the cleanse, the purge that's finishing up in crypto coincides with a war, coincides with inflation, coincides with a new Fed chair after the previous Fed chair rug pulled the American people by raising rates at the fastest pace in history and then keeping them elevated, all by design. Absolutely. And I'm going to show you guys some shocking stats here tonight on just how much wealth is being concentrated in the top 1%. Just how much of equities is being the concentration of equities in the top 10% of earners. I have that stat lined up for you guys tonight as well. But if you are still here, I appreciate you. And I think that you're actually going to thank yourself for still being involved in your investments, your business, and your growth during this time. We don't take a moment to take a break really during the bull run, during the bear market. We just keep it moving. We understand that XRP is not the end all be all for us. It is a means to an end. It is a technology that I think can really benefit the world. And we're going to own a piece of that. We're going to leverage that asset along with others to buy and run businesses that produce value, invest in other assets and, potential income that is more towards the passive spectrum, of course. But as we're going to talk with the XRP yield, with the XRP opportunities here later tonight, we always have to be conducting our due diligence and understanding the risk that we are taking on. And absolutely, there's a lot of risk here in crypto. I said this at the start of my video, I think that was yesterday, that this is not the stock market. You are going to get a 75% drawdown, an 85% drawdown, a 96% drawdown before you go back into a bull run. That's what XRP has done on the historical chart every single time. Is this time different? Absolutely. Can we throw our charts away and maybe we do go into a moment of true utility where we go to much higher prices and the charts get tossed out? I would love to see that. And I do think that that is possible. But make no mistake, down to the very last minute, the very last hour, we're negotiating this Clarity Act. This is a joke. It is an absolute shame what is taking place in DC, stalling up, and this is a matter of national security. But they are willing to sell out the American people. If you didn't know any better, you would think that some of these people work for our enemy. Maybe that's exactly what's happening. But before I ran on any further, let's get you right on into this update. I got it fully stacked tonight. We are so locked in, and I just appreciate you guys for being here. Thank you. At 5:54 p.m. Eastern Time in the United States today, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC of Iran, launched multiple ballistic missiles from Iran in an attempt to carry out a surprise attack on U.S. forces stationed in the Middle East. All Iranian missiles were successfully intercepted. U.S. forces remain vigilant and in a state of maximum readiness. I saw a post, airline tracker, air traffic tracker, I guess. Big movements tonight. Big movements tonight. This one was really out of the blue. I guess uncalled for. We didn't really get any statements from Iran before or after. I can refresh here because this is all breaking news at this hour at 10 p.m. Eastern, quarter after 10. This is all breaking. I don't see any statements. And so that's where it's at. Iran just decided to send some shots here tonight. And so on that, we see that oil is back up here at $82.63 per barrel. So it shot back up to $83 per barrel. That was after earlier today, it did get pushed back down below 78, down to $77 per barrel. So oil did come back down here today, but then Iran decided to wake up tonight and oil right back up to 83. Now, last week we saw oil go back up to 93. Okay, so we were right. I was right. I'm willing to admit when we're wrong, willing to acknowledge when we're right. And it's not what we're doing here is we're just trying to share some analysis. We're going to get some calls right. We're going to get some wrong. At the end of the day, we're just going to try to figure out how to position ourselves accordingly. Either way this goes, we know it's so volatile out here. One day you have a full-blown war. The next day you have a ceasefire. It's a tough one to trade. I've stopped trading it. Now I'm just dollar cost averaging, which is, takes the stress away. That's for sure. But one thing that has me concerned, and that would be the USD versus JPY in the carry trade out of Japan. Still unwinding. We're back up here at 163, and we've really held this level since last week, which took us back up to 164, a level that we haven't seen since the 80s. So we're just acknowledging here to start off tonight's live show that the fires are still burning, literally. The conflict in Iran, yep. Japan carry trade, absolutely. What's been added in this past month? Okay, this past month has brought in a sell-off in the equity markets and specifically in the tech sector. And we've seen it with big sell-offs. And we are officially in correction territory for the NASDAQ 100. Let's see where we're lined up here today. Just want to make sure that you guys have the chart fully in frame. Let me zoom out for you guys right here so you can see the NASDAQ 100 in a full correction, down over 10%. Let me pull it down. That's 10.73% drawdown from the all-time high that we hit at the start of June. So all-time high in Q2. We've already broken down this timeline. We're going to be talking about the 2029 timeline for XRP and the broader market as a whole. But the 2026 timeline was Q1 brought war and new lows. Q2 brought new all-time highs on expectations that we had a ceasefire, and we had to go do the SpaceX IPO, which was the largest IPO in the history of the world. So we literally cleared the skies for the SpaceX IPO, and then we clear the skies for the 250th anniversary. Then we enter Q3, and then we start to see a big sell-off here as the AI narrative starts to get questioned, and even just getting questioned is enough to see a rollover here. Some stocks like SanDisk down over 55% in the past month, and the overnight trading were down even lower. So these things were outperforming crypto. SanDisk is one of those. Some of these AI plays were literally outperforming crypto over the past 12 months, 12 to 24 months. Some of these were outperforming XRP. These really ran hard, and we love to see it. We love to see our community making money. I know that we had some people that were invested not just in SanDisk, but other plays here making lots of money, right? But, we're used to this in crypto. where, 10 and 20 baggers are being printed, and then you get a 55% drawdown in a month. For the stock investors, a lot of them can't stomach that. And that's a hard one to really digest. But for us in crypto, I mean, 50% drawdown. I mean, we're down 75% during this bear market. I'm still showing up bull posting. I'm still showing up optimistic about the future, being down 72% since our all-time high last year. And its fundamentals are still there. And I think that the fundamentals are still there on a lot of the AI trade. It's just we're poking a couple holes on how far overextended might we be. And when you get overextended, then a healthy correction can seem like the end of the world. And for some plays, it can be a real bear market. It can be a 50% correction in this case, which is pretty dramatic, pretty violent. Okay, so the volatility is here. We have over a 50% drawdown on SpaceX as well, too, from the IPO. We told you guys this is one that I was going to be avoiding. This is why right here. Okay, we're down 52% from the all-time high. It traded back up yesterday and then printed a new low here today. And now it's back up. And it closed off today at $116 per share. But that is still down about 14% from the IPO price of 135. So if you participated in the IPO, you bought in at 135, we're below that. And we're well below the IPO pop. And I just want all of our community to recognize what that was. It was an IPO pop. We knew it was coming. They conducted it very successfully as expected. IPO pop for a couple days, drop, And so you got to lock in those gains, right? You got to lock in those gains, but you can't unless you want to get in trouble on these platforms that allowed you to participate in the IPO. On a lot of these platforms, if you sell off within a certain period after getting your shares, you won't be able to participate in future IPOs. That's something to be mindful of. It's like you can take advantage of these and hit it once or twice, but then the platform's going to shut you off from the IPOs. Now, if you invested in it pre-IPO, who knows where you purchased your shares at? You could still be way up on your investment, and a lot of the lockup periods are happening throughout the rest of this year. Big unlocks throughout the rest of this year. So you probably haven't been able to sell yet, but you will have the opportunity to get some liquidity on that here soon. It's a prime example and a learning lesson for everybody considering private equity and considering IPOs and anybody that's investing in these public markets. These are all prime examples. Lessons should be learned, whether you invest in it or not. And so that's why we observe these markets, looking at the stock market, evaluating equities, considering the major indices, where are they trading at right now? Dow Jones back up today. So, this is that rotation out of the tech heavy into the rest of the economy, into the rest of everybody else, besides the Mag 7, besides the hyperscalers, besides the AI. And this is the S&P 500, which we see did trade back up today. But that was after a big drawdown here yesterday. And I mean, this one already did correct down by over 5% here. And that was at the beginning of June. But then I remind you, I zoom out on the chart and I show you that it already had a 10% correction when the war popped off in Iran. So let me zoom in, right? 10% drawdown, that's a technical correction. And then you pop back up here to new all-time highs, back down 5%, and it's choppy now here. And, the NASDAQ 100 has rolled over here and is now back into an official correction. So the S&P 500 very well could be following. The NASDAQ 100 dropped 12% during the war correction during Q2, but then popped back off to new all-time highs. So it's like right here, it's funny, actually, that was in March. So that would have been the end of Q1. So Q1, you get the official correction. Q2, you get new all-time high. And now folks are worried about the bubble popping. We've popped back down here another 10% correction. And, it just goes to show us how fragile this stock market is, this equity market. And I think that it really opens up a conversation about digital assets where folks are going to start to say, okay, why do I not have any exposure to crypto? If I'm here in stocks and I'm trying to make money, I got runners like SanDisk, which ran like thousand, it was a 10 bagger for some folks. It was a 20 bagger for some folks on SanDisk, right? And some of these other, the major indices too, printing gains, right? But then when you get exposed to that downside and you see that 55% drop in a month, you look at major indices like the Nikkei out of Japan. This one was down even further today, down 17% from the all-time high that it just hit. And so we've been printing new all-time highs here in 2026 for the equity market, but just a little like questioning. You ever question somebody and they get all defensive? Just like, hey, man, I was just asking a couple questions. I wasn't accusing you of anything. I was just asking some questions. How's it going? How's it working out? How do we justify this valuation? Right? What's going on with all these circular deals in the AI space, right? NVIDIA's going to loan money to this person who's buying chips back from them and doing a deal here. We start to ask just questions and the market freaks out and the market coughs up a 10% correction for the NASDAQ 100. And to me, it shows how fragile it is and how you still have, maybe not as much downside risk on like the major indices, but you definitely have just as much downside risk on some of these, big plays that folks have made, as we've seen here on some of these corrections on NVIDIA, SanDisk, and others. So we're watching that. We're watching that unfold. And the problem with where the central bankers find themselves is we have the Federal Reserve meeting tomorrow, and they're going to make an interest rate decision. Citadel expects a rate hike, not really much odds of a rate cut. The expectation is that rates will be left unchanged, right? But the problem is that the bond market is already selling off these bonds and already sending rates up, which works in favor of kind of tampering expectations on inflation. Well, really, it's showing expectations on inflation. So it's actually, calming things down. It's making things more expensive to go borrow, right? Even though the Fed has delivered a couple rate cuts, the bond market sold off, and so rates went higher. So the real cost to borrow has actually increased since the Fed has cut rates. So while that works to kind of help tame inflation, it's detrimental to our economy. And it's detrimental to real estate, which I think is an asset class we should all turn our attention to one, pay attention to the situation that we're already in. Are you in a good deal right now? Can you get yourself a better deal? And then as we look to invest in real estate, I think that we're entering a period of a real estate reset, similar to the great financial crisis. It's not going to be exactly the same. I mean, come on. This is not the same. But does it rhyme? Does it have similarities? Absolutely. So we learn the lessons from the past. We get dialed in on where we're at here today. And the bottom line is that we just haven't gotten cheaper rates. Without cheaper rates, we can't price real estate as if it's 2021, 2 and 3% rates. And that's what the market's at. Despite the fact that 30-year mortgage rates are at its highest level in 12 months. 30-year mortgage rate at its highest level in 12 months, up to I don't even know what this is. What chart is that? FX, I've never even seen that chart. But the last that I saw, we were up above 6.55%. And I would imagine that we're up above 6.6% at this point, pushing towards 6.75 on your 30-year mortgage. And here soon, we very well could be back above 7%. Now, every time the 10-year gets back up above 4.5%, we've seen President Trump and Scott Bessent make their move. We're at 4.6% right now. And this is where our mortgage rates are going to be based off of. This is where all of our debt instruments and credit instruments are going to be based off of. Where is the 10-year trading at? Where is the bonds trading at? We need a premium on top of that. So you're going to get a 6.6% mortgage rate right now, maybe even a 7%. And so we're going through a big, big real estate reset right now. The JPY 10-year pushing back up towards 3%. It went back up to 3% at the start of this month, cooled back down here. And we are trading at 2.7% on this 10-year out of Japan. Now, it's the same problem that the UK faces, pushing back above 5% over the last week, up to 5.2% in May. This is UK 10-year bonds. Same thing in Germany. We just went back above 3.2%. Now, you zoom out on these charts and you see what happened with every central bank, with all of these bond markets, is they went to zero. They went to negative 0.88. Basically almost negative 1% here in Germany. That's where the bonds were at in 2020. You were borrowing at literally 1% and 2%. That's where the carry trade got set on steroids. Okay. Now, up in Canada, same situation, up to 3.5% right now. And this is a 10-year that had just shot up above 3.7% back in May as well. And same thing, you know, their rates were way cheaper. All this is a debt reset. And so we're going to have to reset and revalue all of these asset prices. And I think that now is a great time for the regular person to get into these asset classes that you haven't entered yet, whether that be real estate, whether that be the stock market, whether that be digital assets, because here's the bottom line. The wealthiest 1% of U.S. earners now own 50% of U.S. equity and mutual fund holdings. To put this into perspective, their ownership stood at 40% in 1990 and 39.6% in 2001. At the same time, the next 9% wealthiest households own 37%, and the middle 40% own just 11%. By comparison, the bottom 50% of earners hold just 1.1%. As a result, the top 10% of earners now own 87.4% of all equity and mutual fund assets. Asset owners are the only winners in this economy, and it's because they have to continue inflating and destroying the currency. And assets that produce cash flow are what set you free. Now, it's simple to understand that, but it's another thing to actually operate a business and make a cash flow and understand why your P&L sheet is, giving you the results it is. See, 9 out of 10 businesses fail in the first 5 years. And 9 out of the 10 businesses that make it past those 5 fail in the next 10 years. So the odds of actually being successful here in business, not likely, but folks still find a way. And I think the reason to do so is to be financially free, but more importantly, as much as you can get yourself into the I quadrant, for anybody familiar with the cash flow quadrant from Robert Kiyosaki, the I quadrant is the investor quadrant. It's where you actually own the assets themselves. You actually have a piece of the equity of these companies. You own real estate. You own digital assets. You own a business. Don't leave this all for the top 1% and the top 10% of earners. The way that this is set up is this gap is going to actually get worse. It is my base case that the wealth gap increases. over the next 5 to 10 years. As much as I want to be a part of helping people and, investing with the community and changing that, I just got to acknowledge where we stand today, right? Which is the fact of many people aren't going to be able to break free out of the debt system. They're not going to be able to free up enough free cash flow to invest in the best opportunities that sit in front of us here today. As we go through a reset, right, these assets come on sale. And I think that you have a real good sale. The real good sale before we go live with the new financial system, before we complete the reset and revaluation of these assets, it's something to lean into. And it's something that I'm watching very closely because you have every asset moving differently. The stock market and segments and sectors of the stock market moving differently than others. Real estate, it's all about location. You could be in a market where prices are still going up. You could also be in markets that are an absolute bloodbath, which we're seeing. It's an exciting time to be alive, but unfortunately, not enough people are going to get on the right side of the transfer of wealth. I want to be a part of helping to change that, helping people make it. Digital assets, I still think, is the best opportunity, and all by design. I think they're fooling most of retail out of crypto. They got retail, sports gambling, prediction market betting, paying, 7 different subscriptions to watch a show on top of all the other stupid things that people are spending their money and time on. People are distracted. People are tapped out. All of this done by design, along with the DC dance that they're playing. Now, a lot of people started to report that we're going to get a vote next week. We have to be clear. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said that we probably get a vote next week. I'm still optimistic that we get Clarity Act passed, but I'm going to be honest. They're making this dramatic. Either they're making this dramatic or we're not going to get it done. Because Brendan Peterson right here points out exactly what I'm saying from Punchbowl News. Brendan says, if you listen to this clip from last night, Thune does not commit to a vote on Clarity Act before August. He says we will probably have one. That's softer. And words mean things, especially with these politicians. We will probably have a vote on the Clarity Act. We'll see if the Democrats give us the votes to get on that. And then if we don't get it, it's, we just blame the Democrats. I want to stop. I wish we could stop this. I wish we could stop the he said, she said, blame game. This doesn't help the American people. Senator Gallego. I don't even want to say it. I don't want to say Democrat. I don't want to say Republican. Senator Gallego wants to send back a new proposal on ethics. Let's get it done. Right? Let's get it done. Why does it have to be this way? Either we're going to get this done in the last hour. It's going to be the most dramatic bill that ever gets passed in the history of our U.S. Congress. Maybe that's an exaggeration. That might be a Trump exaggeration. I'll admit that. But it's going to be dramatic, or it's just not going to get done. Even though we have literally everybody that was against this bill is now flipping in support of it. Everybody, from the banks, investment banks, the asset managers, the law enforcement groups. The only people still crying are Elizabeth Warren and her buddies. And then there are a few silly guys with an R next to their name too that are like, yeah, we're still concerned about the banks. But stop playing around. You have America's Credit Union Association here. Their chairman, Rodney Hood, told us last week that credit unions have an important role to play in the modernization of the financial system. Days later, They were joined by all 50 state credit union leagues, and they threw their support behind the vast majority of the Clarity Act, but echoed bank concerns about the bill's stablecoin yield provisions, urging senators to strengthen the language. The group argues the current Tillis-Alsobrooks compromise would still allow, quote, functionally passive reward structures that pull deposits away from local credit unions. So even though they won on idle yield on stablecoins, and you will not be able to, us peasants are not allowed to earn yield on stablecoins that are sitting idly on any platform. Us peasants are not allowed to do that. Gosh, no. Goodness sakes. Why would you think that you would have the right to do that as an American citizen? Goodness gracious. And it's not enough, because they know that these platforms are already rolling out the rewards to get around it. They know that we know how to innovate. We're very good at innovating. If the government actually would just get the hell out of our way, it's incredible what we could do. Right? We already know how we can set up rewards. We can set up different incentives and programs and activity-based rewards that would allow users of these platforms to earn yield on their stablecoins. That's what the banks are worried about. See, the banks already won on idle yield on stablecoins. Not enough. We know they're going to do the workaround. If you spend so much money, you get some rewards on your stablecoin. No, no, no. Credit unions don't like that. And see, the shame is that I'm somebody that banks with a credit union. I bank with the small-time credit union. Love it. Absolutely love it. When I walk into the branch, I know everybody from, maybe not now, because I don't go in as much as I used to. Back when I ran my other business, I was in the bank every other few days. Now I don't go into the bank that often, really, actually. But back in the day, I would go into the bank, and I know everybody from the people working it to the top. It's actually how I met my wife. True story. So, she saw how low those bank accounts were, and she still fell in love with me. I don't know how. I must have had something going for me, because I didn't have money at the time. I love that. I love the small time credit union. It's definitely better than the treatment that I get from the national bank, because I work with the big commercial bank too. And they like, it's like they don't even want your business. You want to talk to us? We're going to charge you. You want to put money in our bank? We're going to charge you. And now you're starting to see, though, that they can't look like absolute fools and completely oppose the Clarity Act. So they're putting little caveats there. We support the Clarity Act, but we're worried about the rewards. It's like, dude, how much do you guys need here? And this is all of the reason why we're where we're at here today. Like, people want to get mad about, XRP is a scam. Okay. We also are still in a speculative market without rules of the road or regulation. We have not seen real utility. Ripple has not been able to flip the switch on their U.S. partners that we know they have. We know they were working with Bank of America. Speaking of large commercial banks in the U.S., we know they were working with them. Are they still working with them? Are they waiting to go live? Are they waiting for the Clarity Act? All of this goes to show just how much control they have over those politicians in D.C. The good news is that despite that control that they have, this isn't happening for any other reason than the money guys, the suits, the guys and gals should be equal. The money guys and gals in suits are ready to make boatloads of money off of this. That's the only reason why this is happening. This would absolutely be dead and not happen if they weren't ready for it, which now they finally are. That's why this has taken so long. Now they're ready. Now it's okay for the SEC Chair Paul Atkins to call for the U.S. Senate to pass Crypto Clarity Act. Can you imagine if we had Gary Gensler in there right now? Can you imagine? Good guy Gary, as we called him. Can you imagine if we were dealing with Gary Gensler's SEC? Now, speaking of SEC chair, we got to tuck this one into all the worlds of stage file that digital asset investors hold in. Shout out DAI. Jay Clayton is officially the 9th Director of National Intelligence. Senate confirmed him in a 51-47 vote here tonight. This is the same Jay Clayton who is SEC chair on his last day in office, launched the massive lawsuit against Ripple that lit the crypto world on fire and actually led to billions, tens of billions. The number might even be hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars worth of damage done to the XRP community. Jay Clayton is back. Back again. From Wall Street regulator to Southern District, New York, a U.S. attorney. So we already had seen that Trump had placed him strategically. Big, massive position at the SDNY. The Southern District in New York is where it goes down. And now, Jay Clayton helped set up that Alibaba IPO. Is running America's entire intelligence apparatus. Now, Bank XRP, a huge shout out to Bank XRP. I always like hanging out with Bank. I've had the pleasure of hanging out with him a few times at Ripple Swell, XRP Las Vegas. A huge shout out to Bank XRP, the guy running this account right here. You know, believe it or not, there are real people behind these accounts. It's fun to get in person and actually see who's behind some of these accounts that you follow for years. Bank XRP is a good one. He's a good account to follow, and he's a good guy. And he says right here, Crypto Twitter is about to have a field day. What do you think? Perfect pick or polarizing as hell? The thing is, most people aren't even paying attention to this, to be honest. Like, most people don't even know who Jay Clayton is. If you ask the average American citizen on the street, who is Jay Clayton? They wouldn't know. You ask them who the current chairman of the SEC is right now, they're not going to know. You ask them who Treasury Secretary is right now, they don't know. You ask 50% of America where their 401k's at, they don't know. But the good news is we have the SEC chair saying it's time to pass clarity. And with or without it, the SEC and CFTC are already advancing Project Crypto, a joint regulatory effort aimed at delivering a meaningful portion of the market structure framework through rulemaking rather than statute. It's not the same as legislation, but it's real progress. I track one of the key pieces, crypto assets rulemaking on offer, sales, and exemptions and safe harbors here. So this is from David Nage. And this is something that we've been talking about here recently. That combined with the text of the bill being released, and so we kind of have it all out there. We know what's going to happen, basically. There's a few things being worked out, but we have the text. We know what's going to happen. And so the SEC and CFTC can already start the rulemaking process. They can already send out no action letters like they did to the DTCC. So banks and institutions in America are going to go live with or without the Clarity Act. Make no mistake about it. And this is where we don't want the unfair advantage of being the only digital asset with clarity. But if that's what ends up happening, we're very well positioned. Because this is already moving. But you want to be with the institutions and banks and parties that have clarity, that have no action letters, that can move forward. That's Swift, that's DTCC, that's XRP and Ripple. And it's a few other players, but not that many. SEC Commissioner Pierce explains why certain crypto vaults could fall under U.S. securities laws and has a message for developers. Let's run this clip from Crypto in America
with one of the traditional DeFi pools, it is a smart contract mediating a transaction. There's not an intermediary in there. But when you start doing some of the vault activities, you really are adding a third party. When you have a third party involved in deciding how different assets are being allocated and invested, that's really a situation where you have to start asking, do the securities laws apply? I'm not looking to expand the SEC's jurisdiction beyond where it should be, and I'm certainly not looking to put developers in a position where they don't feel comfortable writing code because they fear they're going to be pulled in. With one of the traditional DeFi pools,
Yeah. So this is what we're watching because we get this guidance. Obviously, this is just an interview. Hester Pierce has stepped down, but she does a pretty good job of translating how the SEC is thinking about these things. Pretty level-headed approach. She's talked about her safe harbor. I think that she's been one of the better commissioners that have served at the SEC. And what she's talking about is these vaults. And we'll have to be watching this, but as my understanding has it right now, the XRP Ledger lending protocol, the way it's set up, it could be done in a completely DeFi way. But for a lot of us, we're looking to do this in a regulatory compliant way as well. And this is where you're going to have the platforms building on top of the XRP Ledger that are going to have to be in compliance with the SEC, especially if you're offering anything to US investors. Right now, you're seeing XRP Yield, you're seeing XRP DeFi. You can access it if you're in the US if it's full DeFi, right? But some of these other platforms, they're actually cutting off US investors because they know what they're doing is a securities offering. The spot that we want to get to is if it's a security offering, here's how you structure it. If it's not a security offering, here's how we move. And that's all we need. You need those rules of the road, and how can you use it as collateral? We'll talk about that here in a minute. That's the rules of the road that we're looking for. And other than that, we're pretty much good to go. Like, we have figured out 99.99% of how this is going to be regulated, how the rules are going to work. Are we upset that we lost, idle yield on stablecoins and a few of these other things? Yes. But we still need to fight to protect our developers. But it is very clear to me on some of these structures and the things that you're doing, right? If you're putting your assets into a pool and then letting somebody else trade for you or do something for you, yeah, I mean, you've checked off all of the boxes to the Howey test that goes back, 80 years, 90 years, right? So you have plenty of precedent on most of this activity. And the good news here, like I said, is that the XRP ledger moves forward regardless. The banks and institutions will be moving forward regardless. And I also think that we enter a bull market regardless of whether or not the Clarity Act gets done. You have to understand, we've talked about this moment. The suits will be selling it with slideshow presentations. The suits are doing that, and the suits are explaining it in a way that makes sense to other suits, other people that invest in traditional markets primarily. This is Grayscale right here, prime example. Hyperliquid, HYPE, trades at a forward multiple of 15 to 18x. Hyperliquid has real cash flow, so it can be valued like a stock, but on earnings per token, not earnings per share. On that basis, it still looks cheap versus fintech peers like Coin, Hood, and Circle. Learn more here. Now, this is just one way to value a token, and they're comparing it to a stock. Are there some similarities, and is there some applicable metrics and evaluation there to consider? Absolutely, yeah. Is that the only way that I would value a token? No, but it's something to consider, and it's how the suits are selling it with slideshow presentations. This isn't a slideshow. I didn't prepare a slideshow for you tonight, although I do like to make my little slideshows now. But this goes to show you that they're moving forward no matter what happens, no matter whether the war in Iran continues, no matter whether or not the carry trade blows up, no matter whether or not the Clarity Act passes. The banks and institutions are moving forward. Wall Street's going to sell it. You want another example? Here you go. Morgan Stanley launches spot Ethereum and Solana ETFs. Now, they're the lowest cost ETFs in each category at an only 14 basis point fee. You're only going to pay 14 bips to be in these ETFs. This is the lowest cost of the ETFs in each category for Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana. And they already offer the lowest cost spot Bitcoin ETF, of course. They're not messing around and clearly unfazed by crypto winter. This is Morgan Stanley. And I told you guys, I've been saying that this is what's happening. It's a different conversation going on in those back rooms. They're coming to get it. They're coming to get theirs. And they will cut and slash the competition. Literally. Cut and slash their way to the top. And this is what Morgan Stanley is doing on their fees. 14 bips to be in this ETF. There's not many other asset managers that are down at 14 bips. Most are at 100, 1 to 2% to be in any fund, to be in an ETF. A lot of these ETFs, though, that have grown so big, and this is what good capitalism does. Capitalism brings more participants into the market, and it brings down the cost for the consumer. In this case, the investor, which is great. So I said, the suits, they manipulate the hell out of this thing. They crash us into a bear market that's painful and liquidates and capitulates everybody. But on the backside, let them juice this sucker back up, which is exactly what they're about to do. They're selling Hyperliquid for you. They're selling Ethereum. They're selling Solana. But guess which happens to be their most successful ETFs that have seen nothing but inflows besides 1 month during World War III? The XRP ETFs. They can try to sell Hyperliquid. They can try to sell ETH, Solana, Bitcoin, all this other crap. What's the best product? Where's the BlackRock XRP ETF? Where's the Morgan Stanley XRP ETF? I mean, if I was at these companies, I'd be turning over tables. Guys, what the heck are we doing? Where's our XRP ETF? Why? But then I started to realize, why are they doing this? It's because they want to move from one to the next. They're trying to soak up market share on Bitcoin, and then they roll out the Ethereum ETF, try to soak up as much as market share as they can get on Ethereum ETFs, and then they roll out the Solana and then the XRP. And they probably laugh, to themselves about, we kind of knew XRP was going to be the best, but this was the trajectory. Try to get as much market share of the first movers, and then eventually they're going to have index basket ETFs, all sorts of ETFs for crypto. But think about this. I want chat, please. Should we listen to Johnny Pants 69 that's going to comment and say that crypto's dead and XRP's a scam? Should we listen to Johnny Pants 69? Or should we watch and listen to what the biggest banks and institutions and ETF managers in the world are doing, which is lining up to sell it, lining up to use it, lining up to trade it? They're moving their entire systems, DTCC. Right? 1970 Legend, I see you just dropped a big super chat for us. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you, sir. Let's pause real quick to check. We got a couple super chats that came in. Zach, please be careful with ZBCN, no FUD, shady business. Yeah, I've looked into everything. I probably know which track you're following on that. And this is something that I've been watching very closely with ZBCN. So yeah, I'm probably aware of where you're going with that on ZBCN. But yeah, I just bought more ZBCN. Speaking of Hyperliquid and the suit selling Hyperliquid, I just bought more Hyperliquid. I just added to my XRP long and just bought more Canton. And then I actually got back into XLM, which I'm excited about. 17.5 cents on XLM. Scoop that up. 56 bucks on Hyperliquid. Thank you. We'll see how it goes. ZBCN down to 0.0019. Scooped. Canton, 12 cents. Thank you. XRP, $1.05. Add to XRP long. So, yeah, we're just moving right now. I see what these banks and institutions are doing. I see the setup. It's very clear. It's very simple. Been here before. Third bear market. Not trying to time the bottom. Not trying to be Nostradamus. Don't ask me when the bottom is or where it's going to be at, to the exact day and the exact hour and the exact penny. I don't know. I feel like we're in the range. That's all I can say. And so we're taking advantage of that, loading up. And we'll talk more about that here later in tonight's episode. Legend says, I take it that you haven't checked your mail yet. Treasures are waiting. I meant to grab it today. I was behind schedule. I was running some errands. I got my hair cut. I had to go dump my grass, mowed my yard, and so I had to dump my grass, and had a few other errands to run. And so I didn't make it to my mailbox, Legend, but I appreciate you for sending me the treasure. And I should be back in the next couple of days. I'll check it. Okay. So appreciate you, Legend. And I will report back for Thursday's live show. I'll make you that deal. I'll report back on Thursday's live show. And we'll open up the treasure that you sent me. Okay. Appreciate you, brother. Let's continue, guys. We're already moving here right along in tonight's live show, approaching an hour. I want to get to your guys' Q&A. So let's keep it moving. This is what I'm worried about here is without clarity, we're seeing exchanges shut down, digital asset treasury companies shut down, hedge funds shutting down, losing money. And then we're seeing a record-breaking amount of hacks in the crypto space as well. And with AI, they get even better. The first half of 2026 was the most hacked 6 months in crypto history. 212 exploits drained 1.1 billion, 3.4 more times incidents than all of 2025. North Korea's main group behind over half of them, 600 million. And compromised private keys caused 74% of all dollar losses. Now that's important. Never give up your private keys, guys. Never give up your private keys anywhere to anyone. Never. The Blockade security report also flagged the first ever AI prompt injection exploit where an attacker tricked an AI agent into approving a $216,000 transaction. So we're seeing a lot of issues showing up. Like I said, exchanges going down, DATs going down, hedge funds going down, and a record amount of hacks in the first half of 2026. And this is why a lot of the products that we have partnered up with and that we work with kind of sell themselves, is because people see what's going on. People try to get customer support. People try to set up and onboard to other platforms, and it's just not the experience that you deserve. And we will ultimately, at the end of the day, have to make sure that things stay secure. So I use a combination of self-custody cold storage. I use various hot wallets. I do still use a couple exchanges, but I've mostly used my two favorite platforms, which are Caleb and Brown and I Trust Capital. Now, the reason why I was excited when they rolled out the premium custody account with the closed loop system is it stops these types of hacks from taking place for you. If there's no way to get your crypto out, then you can't be hacked. You can't be compromised. The only thing that they could do is take over your account and send your crypto, to US dollars to your bank account. That was the only way. Well, now iTrust Capital has enabled the ability to withdraw out of your premium custody account. So you actually can take your digital assets back out. I know that was a concern for some people wanting to put crypto in there. but now they've enabled the ability to withdraw in kind. But the reason why they set it up in the first place was for this exact type of stuff, the hacks that we're seeing. Like I said, this stuff sells itself. I don't share this with you to try to like create a over sensationalize this with a sense of urgency. Like you have to drop everything and drop every exchange and drop self custody and go to iTrust or go to Caleb and Brown. That is not what I'm saying at all. As I explained myself, I still use some self custody, but mostly I've moved to institutional grade custody. Institutional grade custody that's free with US based customer support. So when I need customer support with crypto, I'm not dealing with the headaches. I'm not wondering, am I talking to a real person or not? I can pick up the phone. I have the verified email. I have US based customer support. And so I just wanted to make you guys aware, of course, we have our sponsor. You guys know them, iTrust Capital. I created my premium custody account in less than 10 minutes. If you guys haven't checked out my tutorial, just look up Securing XRP with Institutional Custody. This is a YouTube video that I made last month or a couple months ago. And this is when I created my premium custody account. I recorded a tutorial, and it literally only took me 10 minutes to set up the account. So take advantage of it, use my link down below, and get the $100 funding bonus. And then I wanted to share, this is breaking as of today. I've been kind of flirting this because the team had said, hey, yeah, it's coming. And so I started to let you guys know that the stocks and ETFs are coming. But the announcement that iTrust Capital just dropped is even better than I expected. They're going to be bringing crypto-backed loans in Q4 of this year. So this is better than even I was expecting. iTrust Capital announces its next chapter with US stocks, ETFs, crypto loans, and AI-powered quant technology. So this is the full stack. Full stack, your crypto, your precious metals, your stocks, your ETFs, AI-powered quant technology, great. But what really gets me excited is the crypto-backed loans, especially as we enter this next bull run for XRP. Because I want to see XRP set free after this Clarity Act. We get out of the era of rampant speculation. We stabilize. And then I'll feel comfortable putting my XRP up as collateral. I want to see XRP stabilize, and then I'll put it up as collateral. These big volatile cycles that we've been through, it's tough to use it as collateral. But as XRP increases in price, it will stabilize in price. And at the same time, we stabilize in price based off the fact that we leave the era of speculation and enter utility. And this is where I can't wait to borrow against my XRP. And so I'm very excited that iTrust Capital is rolling this out. If you haven't already, I would encourage you guys to set up an account with them and try out the experience for yourself. The link is down below. The $100 funding bonus is there for you after you get your account funded. Speaking of collateral, and I know you guys want to talk about $1,000 XRP. Let's go there. Do you guys want to talk about $1,000 XRP? Let's go there. This is XRPL Adam. He's the founder of XRP Cafe, First Ledger, Honey Cluster, and the Joey Wallet. I appreciate Adam. Had some good conversations with Adam at XRP Las Vegas. He says $1,000 XRP is a $100 trillion asset. Is there a thesis to this, or is this just influencer garbage? Ooh, spicy, Adam. We like it. We like it. We want to cut through the noise and the BS, man. What are we talking about? This is a nice thread right here. Let's get into it. Payment volume doesn't get you there. A coin that settles in seconds gets reused all day. Only one thing in finance makes institutions hold an asset that they can't spend. And we're going to talk about it. First, let's kill the math that everyone keeps posting. Swift moves 5 trillion a day, so XRP has to be worth 5 trillion. Wrong. A bridge asset settles in 3 to 5 seconds and gets reused all day. Turn it over 100 times and 5 trillion of daily flows needs 50 billion of float. Volume doesn't set the price. Idle inventory does. Now, admittedly, I've done that equation. We've done all of these equations. And our understanding and our math and our equations and our valuations have evolved over time. We used to look at Swift, 5 trillion per day. Okay, we got to have 5 trillion of liquidity ready to go. Not necessarily. And so as our understanding has evolved, so has our valuations of XRP. And I think the XRPO Adam right here is doing a good job of putting this into a thread for us. A bridge asset settles in 3 to 5 seconds and gets reused all day. So the turn, you could turn it over maybe not 100 times, but you can definitely turn it over more than once. Right? With XRP settling in 3 to 5 seconds, you can definitely use it more than once. So we have to, calculate that with our valuation. 5 trillion of daily flow needs 50 billion of float. And I don't know where he's pulling that number. I don't know if that's true. I guess that would just be with the assumption that you can turn it over 100 times, right? But the other thing to point out too is that for any liquidity flow, you have to have XRP set aside specifically for that flow. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Volume doesn't set the price, idle inventory does. I'm not saying that to be a downer. I'm saying it because once you understand it, you stop looking at payment volume and you start looking at the only thing that actually moves a market cap. How much has to sit still? So what does sitting still look like in dollars? So the total supply off the live ledger header right now is 99.9 billion XRP. We have 32 billion escrowed. So we have about 62 billion circulating or liquid. And by the way, the real number is far less. Maybe 6 billion liquid that actually is ready to move here at current prices. Which makes the arithmetic simple enough to do in your head. XRP at $100 is a $10 trillion asset, correct? XRP at $1,000 is a $100 trillion asset. That's it. That's the question. Not whether banks use it, whether it becomes a $10 trillion asset. Most people never state it that plainly because stated plainly it sounds insane. This is where market cap bros lose their mind, right? It only stops sounding insane if something forces institutions to hold XRP that they can't spend. There's exactly one thing in finance that does that: collateral. Post collateral against a position, and it's frozen for the life of the trade. It's not velocity, it's not throughput, it's inventory that legally can't move. Gold isn't worth what it's worth because people transact it. It's because people hold it. They're speculating on it. They're holding it for many different reasons, right? And what did we just talk about that iTrust Capital is about to offer? Crypto-backed loans. Loans against your XRP. What's coming to the XRP ledger? The lending protocol. It is not clickbait. It's not hope. It's not far-fetched to say that billions of XRP are about to get locked up in lending. I myself can't wait to borrow against my XRP and post it as collateral. And when you got Joe Blows like myself posting it as collateral, might not be too big of a deal. But when you multiply me by millions of people and by institutions that are holding billions of XRP, we have a different equation. We're doing different math. And that is really what ends up moving the needle for XRP going to a lot higher prices. Right? A lot of people are running with the assumptions that all of this is going to be free float. Adam says, now the part that made me sit up. In October 2025, Ripple closed a $1.25 billion acquisition of Hidden Road. It's now Ripple Prime, an institutional prime broker. Prime brokers are in the business of deciding what counts as good collateral. Ripple didn't partner with one, they bought one. In April of 2026, KBRA, an SEC registered rating agency, not a crypto shop, assigned Ripple Prime an issuer rating of BBB triple B, investment grade. July 8th, 3 weeks ago, they added a senior unsecured debt rating, BBB, stable outlook. Their words, the balance sheet has grown significantly over the past 12 months. Oh boy. See, people have been wondering, when's this coming? Well, this does take a little bit of time. The acquisition was done in October of 2025. It takes some time to move it. But from a third party ratings agency, an SEC registered rating agency, quote, the balance sheet has grown significantly over the past 12 months. Ripple's own hidden road closing post names RLUSD as collateral. XRP is not in it. Not in the KBR report either. The Prime brokerage page lists no eligible collateral at all. But on stage at Consensus in May, Garlinghouse talked about making XRP good collateral across institutional platforms. That's the tell. Not a partnership announcement, not a headline about trillions, a collateral schedule with 3 letters in it. The day XRP shows up as eligible margin at an investment grade prime broker is the day there's a structural reason to hold it that has nothing to do with anyone's price target. And the thing that nobody weighs properly, XRP is the only major token that can clear a compliance desk on paper. So without Clarity Act, what assets can you post as collateral? Especially institutional grade collateral. Right. Solana, Cardano, Matic have been adjudicated exactly 0 times, unlike XRP. Now, $10, $100, $1,000. I'll tell you what to watch, and it's falsifiable, which is more than most people posting about this will give you. First collateral schedule that names XRP. Everything else is noise until then. Now, I appreciate this thread from Adam because it shows how the education and understanding and valuations that we are now conducting in the XRP community are much more evolved than they were back in 2020. And I would hope that they would be, right? 5-6 years have passed. Things have changed. And when you consider what has actually changed, it's the fact that Ripple has acquired these companies and made these acquisitions, which allow XRP to be put up as collateral. Right? And all of these acquisitions and all of these partnerships and all of this adoption, Ripple has laid out very clearly, is to drive value back to XRP. So ultimately, we do need to take a look at how much of Swift are we going to replace. It's a tough number to take a look at, and it's pure speculation at this point. But like Adam says, we do have metrics right here to watch that absolutely are going to move the needle on XRP. And you might be saying, well, why hasn't that happened yet? One of the big reasons is there hasn't been the lending protocol on the XRP ledger up until now. We have half the votes that we need to bring the XRP ledger lending protocol live on the XRP ledger. We're almost there. And this will start the process of XRP being used as collateral by myself, by you, by the hundreds of thousands and millions of people that are ready to use XRP as collateral, and by the banks and institutions and other trading desks and hedge funds and other partners of Ripple that will want to use XRP as collateral. See, they're starting with RLUSD. It's just like how they've done it going all the way back to 2014. Ripple had the ability to handle fiat payments. And so they could update your fiat rails without having to force XRP on you. But then they showed you the secret sauce, which was on-demand liquidity. actual payment flows and settling with XRP. Well, now it's not just about, hey, we have a solution for better payments. It's we have a solution for custody. We have a solution for other stable coins, other central bank digital currencies. We have a solution for tokenization. We have a solution for liquidity. And we now have all of those solutions on the XRP ledger, not off the XRP ledger, no, on the XRP ledger. And this gets very interesting as we watch RLUSD getting locked up as collateral. Sure, we love to see the activity. That's great. But what we're really waiting for is when XRP starts to be used as collateral, and then you start to revalue that XRP supply equation. Are we really talking about 62 billion circulating supply for XRP? It's not even freaking close. You and I both know that. Let's be honest with ourselves. There is not 50 billion XRP that's ready to move around. You could pump XRP up to $50 tomorrow. There's not 50 billion XRP waiting to be sold. There's not 20 billion XRP waiting to be sold. Are there billions of XRP waiting to be sold at 10 to $50? Yeah, I would say that's safe to say. But the point being, there's a lot of us that aren't selling to much higher prices. I talk to people every day that don't plan on selling any XRP or, maybe 5 or 10%. And so you watch this bear market conclude, you look at the historical charts, and what I'm observing is the bear market's about wrapped up. Between now and the midterms, it's a done deal. They probably push XRP below $1 one last time, and they get to make fun of Ripple. They get to make fun of everybody in XRP because XRP is worth less than Ripple's stablecoin. That's the meme. That's the joke. Everybody gets to make fun of us. And that happens for a brief moment right before we get back into a bull run and right before XRP prints us another 10-bagger or, something close to it. Just like it has done in the previous cycles. I'm not here to guarantee you anything. I'm not here to say that that is going to happen 100%. What I'm here to show you guys, though, is that this is how it's played out historically. Take a look here. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results, of course. Nobody has a crystal ball. But Chart Nerd shows us XRP's historical data says we're going towards $8 by 2029. It's not a random projection. It's data-backed, average peak-to-peak ranges of 1,400 days places us in the range for such a time frame. Now, Chart Nerd, along with others, have also showed the potential for XRP to go to $13 and $27. And I'm saying those numbers because I know specifically Chart Nerd has showed those numbers. And I know many other folks that have showed those numbers. I know people that talk about a lot higher numbers too. Okay, that's fine. But as I titled tonight's episode, XRP 2029 Timeline, I wanted to acknowledge that, yes, last 12 months in XRP, it's been nothing but red. If you've invested in XRP over the past 12 to 24 months, you might be down on your investment and you might be frustrated. Join the party with all the rest of us that have been holding it for even longer that are equally as frustrated. The difference is who's still going to hold out and who's going to capitulate and sell during historically what has been the worst time to sell your XRP, which is moments like right now. Let me show you on the historical XRP price chart. We're zoomed out. And you can see that, yes, XRP has dropped 75% right here. From $3.66 Sorry, it's only 72% actually, down to $1.01. But if we drop 75%, that'll be down to 90 cents. Okay? Which would be similar to the 85% drop in the 2022 bear market, which would be similar to the 96% drop during the 2018 bear market. So we've dropped 72%. If we're following the pattern, we'll drop about 75. That means you have a little bit left to go, and then the bear market's over. And this is exactly what happened in 2022, is that you got the low in June of 28 cents. You had over half a dozen, about 6 opportunities to buy XRP between that 28-cent low and 32 cents. Even in January of 2023, it went back down to 32 cents one last time. And if you bought at those levels and rode XRP up to the all-time high that we hit last year, that was a swing of 1,100%. The bull market before that in 2021 produced 1,600%. And the bull market of 2017 produced 60,000% returns. So the law of diminishing returns is in play. Right? XRP pumped 60,000% from the bear market low to the bull run top in that 2017 cycle. Crazy work. Not expecting that again. We pumped 1,600% in the 2021 cycle, 1,100% in the 2025 cycle. So are we going to do a little bit less this next bull run? We could. Let's take a look at the chart. What does that look like? People don't even understand that going back to $4 for XRP is a 343% move if you get that 90-cent low. That's assuming the 90-cent low. From $1 up to $4, it's about 300% though. So let's just round off and make this easy. Back up to $4, you don't have to talk about anything crazy. Just XRP going back to $4 between now and goodness gracious. Can you imagine if it actually took until 2029? That'd be brutal. But let's just say, see, this is where we conduct due diligence and we run through very conservative models, very conservative expectations. If we were looking for through a real estate deal, right? Very conservative assumptions and a very conservative pro forma. If this goes bad, we're going to buy an apartment building and part of it's going to burn down. That's kind of the level of conservative risk management that we're looking at if we just talk about XRP going to $4 or $5. That's like buying a piece of real estate and saying, yeah, part of it's not going to work. It's going to burn down. It's not going to go as planned. It's not going to work out. It's going to take longer than expected, but we're still going to make 300% on our money. These are returns that Wall Street dreams of. These are returns that most people would be ecstatic to get between now and 2029. And this is worst case scenario. Unless you truly think that XRP is going to go below $1, it's going to die and it'll never return above. I think that the worst case scenario for XRP this next cycle would be $5. Worst case. And even a $5 XRP, obviously you have to have some bags to work with. That's a life-changing amount of ROI if you have enough capital to deploy. But let's get back to this. 300% ROI if we go to $4. That's our worst case scenario in this hypothetical, not financial advice, just having fun. You have a 900% return if we go to $10 from this level. Okay. And then 1,100% takes us up to about 12 to 13 bucks. And that's assuming the $1.01 low. If we go down, let me move this back down to actually about 90 cents. That would be 1,300%. So if I'm right that we do go down to 90 cents and we only saw 1,100%, that's an $11 XRP. But I mean, you guys get the point. You guys get the point. I mean, just being very, 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 very conservative. 300 to 1,000% between now and 2029. If things go wrong, if we don't come in to save the day, if we come in to save the day, and XRP does go beyond that, totally open to that possibility. Just in an effort of always staying conservative when it comes to business, when it comes to investments, when it comes to life, just knowing things, go wrong, timelines get extended, and goodness gracious, if you haven't, capitulated on your timeline by now, and you're still like, no, this year we're going to $1,000. I don't know what it's I don't know what it's like to be in that headspace right now. I really don't know what it's like to think about $1,000 XRP right now when we just have to hit some targets along the way here to get to $10 that I think are going to be some big leaps and big hurdles to get above. Happy, thrilled to have my expectations blown out and to go way past, 10 and 20 and $30 for this next cycle. I thought that there was a potential to go to 20 to $30 tops in 2025. Dead wrong. Wrong. So wrong. Everybody was wrong, though, about 2025. Whether you thought XRP was going to go to $5, whether you thought XRP was going to go to 100 or $1,000, dead wrong. Completely wrong. But if your business model doesn't rely upon that, if your whole portfolio, if all of your investments don't rely on XRP has to go to a high price this year, and you're a long-term investor, well, then you didn't get caught off guard. You didn't get caught with your pants down. The people that got caught here off guard are the ones that over-leveraged themselves, that built a business model on, I need XRP price appreciation. Like, not just XRP price appreciation to $5 or $10, but I need price appreciation to trouble. Same people that thought that needed Bitcoin to go to 200, 300, 500,000. And this is why we're seeing digital asset treasury companies fold. It's why we're seeing hedge funds close up shop. It's why we're seeing additional platforms having issues with withdrawals. We're seeing a lot of issues. People can't get their crypto out. And all of this is the grand finale of the bear market. The Iran war, the carry trade, the new Fed chairman, Kevin Warsh, coming in, playing out his role, just one of the many men playing their part on the world stage. All part of this Clarity Act drama between now and November. And all I'm doing at this point is enjoying the show, filling up the bags, and making sure that I'm ready for the worst case scenario next bull run that is coming. I don't know how anybody could sit here today and say that another bull run for XRP is not coming. Now, for your Pepe, Shib, Fuzzy Wuzzy, Penguin, crap coin meme, I'm sorry. I don't know if you're going to get X liquidity on that coin. I don't know if there's, I don't know, maybe you have some utility in that Shiba, Pepe, Doge, Fuzzy Wuzzy, Penguin coin. You might have some utility there. But if not, I can't promise that anything's going to be coming back into it. But for digital assets like XRP, for digital assets like Canton, I don't know what's going to happen with Canton. I don't trust Canton. Canton's a cabal coin. But I still place a little hedge bet. you know? And we place our bets in HBAR. We placed a bet here recently in XLM, ZBCN, Hyperliquid. And then, of course, I just added to XRP long. I actually added to my XRP long again at these levels because I don't want to have the same regret that I have from not buying XRP at 10 cents in 2020, the last chance to get XRP at 10 cents. I don't want to have the same regrets of not buying more XRP at 30 cents or under 30 cents. I bought a lot under 30 cents, but in 2022, I should have bought more during that bear market. In 2018, during that bear market, when I got into crypto, I was just excited to be there. I was broke, didn't have any money. 5 years out of high school, running my business. I felt free. I actually had to achieve freedom because I basically, I worked for myself. I was my own boss, and I was making good money. But relatively, I had nothing to invest. Everything was just kept in the business. We just kept everything. We didn't take on a lot of debt. We just buying equipment, doing a lot of deals, cash, buying other businesses, cash. And so I didn't have much to invest during the 2018 bear market. I was a young entrepreneur, broke, just trying to figure it out. In the 2022 bear market, I was there. I was active. I had been in the game, but it was the first bear market where I was really allocating serious capital for me relative to me. Right. And so I regret that I didn't allocate more. I regret that I didn't buy in March of 2020 at 10 cents, but I thought it was the end of the world. We all did, right? I regret that I didn't buy more during the 2022 bear market. I'm not going to have regrets this bear market. Like, yeah, coulda, woulda, shoulda bought this coin or that coin. But as far as just dollar cost averaging into my main holdings, I'm really happy. Like, just got back into XLM, just got back into Hyperliquid, added to HBAR bags, added to ZBCN, added to Canton, added to my XRP long. My liquidation price is still very low. So, still have risk there. But ultimately, I've just stopped trading. So I don't have the stress of trying to trade oil or doing anything right now. I'm just enjoying summer with my family, right? And dollar cost averaging, knowing that this is a moment that will pass, and we go into a bull run which produces life-changing ROI opportunity if you play it right. If you're not scared to still be allocating capital after a 70% drawdown. And I'll leave you guys with one piece before I open up the chat for rapid fire Q&A, because I do want to get to that. I want to share the story. You guys have probably already heard it, but it's worth reminding for the new folks, especially too. Rick Rule, legendary investor. We interviewed him. I see him every year up in Vancouver at the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. Great guy. Highly recommend for understanding precious metals and commodities investing. He's also very good at private equity, capital allocation. One of the best. And see, that's what I do is I learn from these guys that are investing in private equity in mining companies, right? And I can take that back and I can apply it for private equity on tech, software, crypto, you name it. Same principles apply. But Rick Rule, he shares the story about how he's had 14 10-bagger investments in his career. And every single one of those he held through a 50% drawdown. And when he said that, to me, that was all I needed to know as far as what it takes to have conviction, what it looks like in the real world, not just talking about it, but actually holding investments, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 14 times. And I would imagine for Rick, he wasn't throwing a few $100 at a little meme coin or $500 at XRP. Rick makes bigger allocations. And to hold during a 50% drawdown when you've put in considerable money, that's not easy. If you throw $500 at a coin, it goes down 50%, you lost a couple $100. That's life. Yeah, that's gambling. That's making a move. Where you become a real investor is when you understood your reasoning for why you bought it and allocated it, your capital when you did. When it gets discounted 50%, you still understand the fundamentals by why you're going to hold your position, but then you also have enough conviction and you have the right capital management so that you've actually kept capital for that moment so that you can pounce on the opportunity when it presents itself. And that's why guys like Rick Rule are legendary investors. It's not because they don't invest in stuff that goes down 50%. 14 of their 10 baggers went down 50%. But they held, they probably doubled up and tripled up the bags, and then rode them back for 10x returns. And that's in many ways how I look at this digital asset market and these speculative cycles that we still trade in before we get utility and before we get the Clarity Act. Okay? Should I sell my kids and buy more XRP? I can't give you financial advice. I refuse to give you parenting advice because I'm still figuring it out myself. But yeah, I would make some sacrifices to buy more XRP. Keep the children. Sacrifice something else. Yeah, I hope you guys are doing good tonight. Let's go rapid fire Q&A. Drop your questions, comments in the chat. If you guys haven't already, please help us out by liking, by hyping, and sharing it out far and wide. I greatly appreciate your support for tuning in here tonight, this Tuesday, July 28th, 2026. Will the Clarity Act pass? I'm still optimistic that it will. I don't know if it'll pass by August 7th recess. Senator Majority Leader Thune says we'll probably get a vote. That doesn't sound really that strong. But I'm hopeful that we'll get it done by the midterms. We're absolutely going to get it done at some point. We're going to get it. It's just, is it before August 7th recess? Is it before November? If it doesn't get done and the market comes back down, it's just further opportunity. Will XRP go to $2,000 this year? Like I said earlier, I don't even think about that. I don't think about that. It's not something I think about or consider at all anymore. As far as spending any mental capacity, any time thinking about, is XRP going to $2,000 this year? I don't spend time on that. Okay. Nonstop solid information. I try to keep it coming for you guys. Let's go. I appreciate you guys. I really couldn't do it without your support. So thank you. Good to see you, Stu. This person says the only other risk everyone needs to stay aware of is do not place the bulk of your crypto into a custodianship platform. It's a trap and will be legislated that it can't leave custodian hands. That's not in the text of the Clarity Act right now. There is going to be some consolidation. There's exchanges that are shutting down right now that people are getting locked out of. But yeah, I mean, there's not going to be any limitation in that regard. Most people are going to own ETFs. Most people are going to invest through the traditional platforms. We just provide the resources that allow you to invest like an institutional client with free institutional grade custody, and you have the full control of your assets. You're the beneficial owner. If any of the platform, basically we have, the main couple platforms that we work with, I Trust Capital, Caleb and Brown, they both have bankruptcy or moat protections in place. You're the beneficiary owner of the assets, and they don't lend out or borrow against your crypto. So, yeah, I mean, I would be worried though about these centralized exchanges. I'm very worried myself about these centralized exchanges right now. I don't really use them. I use Coinbase for trading futures, but other than that, I'm just doing everything on I Trust and Caleb and Brown, and then self custody and Dex. So, I'm seeing all these issues with the centralized exchanges, and it has me very concerned. Show us the red folder. The red folder's in my closet. Still have it. The damages are massive. We were completely vindicated on all of it. But yeah, Ripple had to spend almost $150 million fighting the SEC. The XRP family's still going through this. We're still going through the Link 2 bankruptcy. I meant to actually look up earlier. There's supposed to be a Link 2. I wonder if there's any Link 2 update from today's hearing. I'm not seeing anything. Not seeing anything. Okay. There was a hearing today. I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up right here for you guys. It was a hearing today on the Chapter 11 process. Forge Global has notified the debtors that they would not serve as the liquidating trustee. So the bankruptcy's already been approved. It's like ready to be finalized. And then Forge Global, I guess, got acquired by Charles Schwab earlier this year. And now they say, we don't want to participate in this. Well, the problem, the debtors in the official committee of unsecured creditors, they filed a complaint and request for injunctive relief against Forge because the court's already ordered and approved this process and ordered Forge to conduct this. So we'll see. I didn't call into the hearing today, but that did take place today, the Link 2. But I bring that up just to add that we still, like, a lot of damage is done to the XRP community, man, with that deal, which was a fantastic deal. Link 2 was going great, you know, and you had a bad actor, Bill Saris, who did some things, and here we are. It's a shame. It's a real shame. And yeah, man, we still have the red folder. The damages are massive. Crazy. Will Ripple ever IPO? Yeah, I think that they will, but they're not in a rush. They've said that they're not in a rush, but I think that they absolutely will. I think that it's going to be one of the largest IPOs in the history of the world too. That's the other part of the IPO. I've been talking about that for years, about how their IPO very well could be one of the largest in the world. I mean, we just saw the SpaceX IPO. Is Flare a good bet? Yeah, I think that Flare's going to bounce back to a few pennies and have a nice little run back up. I do. As far as the long-term future of Flare, I still have just too many unanswered questions right now. I just saw that they updated something Hugo had posted. Let me find my bookmarks right here. Hugo had posted an update on Flare earlier. Okay. XRP Fi now with more wallets and a simpler flow. Enter FXRP vaults through the FSA DApp with Zaman, Decent, Joey, Ledger, Bifrost, or via Wallet Connect. So one signature XRP Fi for all. So this expands the wallets that are available to use Flare smart accounts. This means that you can use your XRP on Flare with the very same wallet and address you use for XRP, making transactions on Flare directly from the XRP ledger. No second EVM wallet, completely seamless. This is what we need. We need this seamless integration. People don't even need to know what's going on in the background, right? Where it's 1-2 clicks, approve it, and you're earning yield on your XRP, right? And ideally too, before you click those couple buttons to allocate your XRP, you've conducted due diligence on how you are putting your XRP to work and who you're giving your XRP up to. And so I still have to deploy some FXRP myself. I'll have a follow-up on Flare for you guys, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you guys have subscribed and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Flare follow-up coming soon. Thank you, Legend. I'll see you Thursday. Thank you. Didn't Ripple fund the Flare startup? I don't believe Ripple gave them any money. I mean, obviously there's been kind of a partnership there for a while. I don't know what that partnership really entails at this point. I mean, Flare's kind of just piggybacked and built in and connected to the XRP ledger from the get-go. Like they tied themselves to XRP by doing the airdrop. I remember, Coinbase not giving, they still never gave us our Songbird. And they eventually gave us our Flare, but we had to raise hell with them. Fred Rispoli, shout out Fred, had to sue them. It's just crazy what we've been through, man. The SEC versus Ripple lawsuit. I remember tuning in to watch Fred in one of his cases. I think it was his case against Coinbase. Fred Rispoli, God bless him. This link to bankruptcy, man, we've been through it all. Thoughts on HBAR? I'm bullish. The tokenomics are a little bit of an issue for me. Need to see institutional adoption. Couple ETFs. Don't think there's any digital asset treasury companies. Expecting it to still have a nice bounce back, though. I just bought more at 8 cents. So I'm bullish. I totally forgot to congratulate you on your new baby, Zach. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yesterday, my boy went into the doctor and he had his checkup, right? And he's 4.5, 4 months old. He's 99th percentile for height. So the boy came in tall, which was no surprise. He's stretched out here. He really has. He's bigger than both his sister and his brother were. But yeah, he's 99 percentile for height, and he was like 86% for weight. So he's still got some chunk to him too. I'm very impressed. I told my wife, great job, babe. You're doing a great job. That's a big one. We want a big one. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. The South Korean stock market hit the circuit breaker again. It's been every day. I mean, we're almost at 50 times that the circuit breaker has been hit in that South Korea stock market. All manipulation. What do you think if XRP goes to 25 to 50 cents? Do you back up the truck or does it give caution? I don't see it possible. I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, I would back up the truck. Absolutely. I would absolutely. But the thing is, I've already started backing up the truck. I'm not waiting. And I like to be honest with you guys, right? The fact that I'm dollar cost averaging is because I know I will not time this perfectly. I know I'm not Nostradamus. I know I don't know when the bear market actually bottoms out. So I started buying it at $1.30, $1.20, $7, $5, and then I listed off the other half dozen cryptos that I've bought too. I'm always getting offers from Equities in to buy Ripple stock at 50 billion valuation. What do you think about that? 50 billion is the last valuation that they did a tender offer at. 40 billion is the last valuation that they did a raise at the last Swell conference. They announced that. We had so many people that got such good deals on Ripple equity, man. And it's just crazy because this is a problem now, is like all good things, us humans find a way to ruin a good thing. And so you had all these people that were rolling out these special purpose vehicles to invest in IPOs. And this is where the viral tweet came out of some gal that had brokered a deal for Anthropic IPO. And she said that she'd made more money brokering an Anthropic pre-IPO deal than she'd made in the last 10 years of her career. Well, this led to the board of directors of Anthropic coming out and saying, I'm paraphrasing, you know what, if you think that you bought shares and you haven't gotten approval from us. So they really challenged and pushed back. And this has more and more people are starting to look around as you have, situations like Link2 pop up and others. We're seeing it in the private credit market. We're seeing it in private real estate funds, the whole private fund space. And people are starting to look into this. And all these private funds that were investing in IPOs, pre-IPO, some of them weren't structured properly. Some of them don't have approval from the company. And on some of these, the company actually has right of first refusal. So they can buy back the shares too. So if they don't approve you owning it, they can buy it back. So, this is something that I've learned over the past 3 years, because I didn't really start to look at private equity till, a few years ago. And I've learned a lot along the way. And I'm glad that I've been able to learn a lot here before I have allocated any capital and put anything anywhere. Because there's a lot to that market. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot to understand. You have to be an accredited investor or a qualifying purchaser. Right? You got to make sure that the funds are structured. And even if you buy a good deal like the SpaceX IPO, you might be locked up too. So, there's a lot to it. But as far as buying Ripple equity at this point, I still think that they're actually undervalued. So I do think that it's still a good deal, but it's like buying, I didn't want to buy XRP at $2 or $3 because I'd already bought most of my XRP under 30-40 cents. In the same way, I am looking at Ripple equity right now and I'm like, man, it's still undervalued. I still think that this could be good. But when you looked over a deal at such a cheaper price, sometimes you don't want to pull the trigger later on, even if you still could have upside. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of folks were buying Ripple equity at 5, 10 billion valuation, 15 billion valuation. And a lot of people are up on their Ripple equity big time. I think that one's going to pay out really well for a lot of people. But with the Clarity Act and the lawsuit, I mean, it probably pushed back Ripple going public a few years. Ripple very well already could have been a public company if it hadn't have been for the lawsuit and if it wasn't for the Clarity Act being stalled. Zach, when it comes to liquidity and the prices of these cryptos skyrocketing, what would be the best place for selling or taking profit? Caleb and Brown or I Trust Capital? Um, for me, it's both. I use both. I have orders right now on both platforms, and I'm trading futures on Coinbase, so I use a few different ones. It really depends on what you're trading. Um, these smaller market cap coins don't have good liquidity anywhere, which can lead to them pumping aggressively, but then good luck getting out. But I basically I like to give myself options. So I have Caleb and Brown, I have I Trust Capital, I have centralized exchanges like Coinbase, and then I also use the DEX. Where are you going to get the best liquidity? Well, I'm trying to get liquidity on all of them. Like I have sell orders right now on XRP on Caleb and Brown, which is where I keep the majority of my XRP now. And so I just have orders sitting there that are from last bull run. They're still sitting there on Caleb and Brown. I believe that I have at least one, if not a couple, orders on the DEX to sell XRP during the next bull run. I thought last bull run. Now I'm hoping this next bull run, but gonna get liquidity from the DEX. Got orders on Caleb and Brown. I'm gonna use I Trust Capital. I've left a little bit of XRP on Coinbase, like a very, 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 very small amount, but just to give myself the option. And yeah, I'm gonna try to get it from a few different places. I'm not gonna try to just source it from one. But the other part to consider, your withdrawal limits and your withdrawal fees. So a platform might be able to conduct a cheaper trade than, say, Caleb and Brown. Caleb and Brown might be quoting you 3% to trade, right? And you'll say, wow, this is way more expensive than the other platform here that's only a 1% fee. What that other platform's not telling you, though, is the spread. The other platform is not reminding you that you have withdrawal limits and that you also have withdrawal fees. And so I've done this myself where I've traded different coins on other platforms to go see what the total cost of trading and selling and cashing out would be on various platforms. Because if I'm going to use Caleb and Brown, if I'm going to tell my community about Caleb and Brown, I want to know, how does it actually stack up? If I'm going to agree to go pay my 2% fee to Caleb and Brown, or 3%, whatever it's going to be, how does that compare to other platforms? And what I found was shocking. With these other platforms, centralized exchanges, the trading fee plus the withdrawal fee plus the spread, the total cost in some of these instances was over 5%. I remember trading one coin, cashing it out between the trading fee and the spread, 8%. And so when you ask me the question, which is a fantastic question, by the way, fantastic question, what would be the best place for selling or taking profit, Caleb and Brown or I Trust? Or insert any other platform, right? Look, getting liquidity in your order done is one part of it. Cashing out is another part. So consider the total cost, not just the trading fee, the spread that platform, and some platforms are worse with the spread than others. Some platforms, that spread will get to 5, 6, 7%. 1% trading fee, 5% spread. Oh, now you want to withdraw? $20,000 limit per day and a withdrawal fee. And it might take time to get that money to you. Caleb and Brown, they just partnered up with Caleb and Brown just partnered up with Ripple to speed up the withdrawal process. Every time I've used them, they get me my money the next day. That was before they partnered up with Ripple. So I guess it's going to get even faster. But, it's a fantastic question. And like I said, it's why I have multiple options. It's why I use multiple platforms. Does Caleb and Brown have a fixed fee? Yes. And that's why I love it. You know what it's going to be. You're going to get a quote, and your quote is going to be, 3% fee all in. And then you're not going to get hit with the withdrawal fee. You're not going to get hit with the withdrawal limit, which is why I've been telling folks about Caleb and Brown, especially with bigger bags. They're willing to work with you too. You tell them that Zach sent you. You tell them that you got big bags. They're ready to have a good conversation with you. You might be able to negotiate those fees down. We've had many people in our community do that. Now, you're talking 7-figure plus holdings, right? But when you move with size, or you just have large amounts and large deposits, our partners love to work with our community. They really do. And so we've had people negotiate that down because they're bringing millions to the platform. Absolutely. And when it comes time to do a deal, and you're going to cash out profit from crypto, and you want to send $100,000 to your bank account, you better have that connection tight. And you better make sure that you don't have withdrawal fees and withdrawal limits. Because think about the withdrawal limits and fees that these other platforms might hit you with. You have $100,000 in crypto to cash out, but you're hit with a $10,000 limit, $25,000 limit and fee. It might take you 4 days and 4 withdrawal fees to be able to get your money out. And then you need to tally that up into your total cost. So what you thought was a 1% trade from XYZ platform ends up being a 5 to 10% total cost, and potentially days to get that capital out. Unacceptable. We don't deal with that. The platforms that we work with, no, we don't deal with that. And that's what I'm saying. It's crazy to me to watch all this unfolding, and I'm like, guys, if you haven't seen me talk about these platforms, have you not heard about some of these other platforms? We got the solution for you now. And as I always say too, I still have self-custody. I'm not telling you that you have to put it all with any of these platforms. I use multiple storage solutions, multiple trading platforms or liquidity venues. I have multiple banks. I got multiple, multiple revenue streams within my business. I like to give myself options, right? Withdrawal limits on iTrust. I don't think that there are withdrawal limits on iTrust. I'll make a note to check that. I don't believe that they do. What about the little guy? Well, that's the great thing about the platforms we work with is there's minimum trading on some, but they'll work with the little guys. You have to have $1,000 to get the $100 funding bonus though with iTrust Capital. when you use my link down below, you got to put $1,000 US or $1,000 worth of crypto in to get that $100 funding bonus. So, you got to have $1,000 to get that bonus, but I mean, you can get started right away, completely free to set up these accounts. And they're working on the yield and they're working on the lending for the little guys as well, too. So I'm very excited about that. Right now, iTrust Capital is offering 2% on RLUSD, which is not as much as other platforms. But for me, I want to just know that what I'm expecting is going to be sustainable. So I'm happy to only make 2% on my RLUSD because I know exactly what's happening on the back end to generate that 2%. Right? iTrust Capital is owning or holding the RLUSD, and the RLUSD is backed by treasuries. The treasuries are paying out 3 to 4%. Ripple's pocketing a chunk of change. iTrust Capital's pocketing a chunk of change, and I get my 2%. And I know that can be done month after month after month. And when the Clarity Act passes, they are going to have to change to, rewards-based activity and incentives to give you any sort of payout on that. But in speaking with the guys over there at iTrust, they're already well aware. They're already working on all of that. And yeah, just like you said, Mad Analytics, 2% is still 200% more than traditional banks. Exactly. Can you buy with them and transfer to a cold wallet? Yeah, absolutely. There's certain restrictions and limitations with the IRA product from iTrust Capital. But I know you can withdraw in kind. You can withdraw in kind from the PCA now. I believe that you can withdraw in kind from the Treasury, but don't hold me to that one. But I'm pretty sure you can. And then Caleb and Brown's a great platform to buy and move it to your cold storage too. Yeah, that's free, by the way. I had some people in the Discord that were talking about the withdrawal fees that they were getting hit with to pull crypto in kind off of other platforms. And it was a lot. It's crazy. And that's why I like Caleb and Brown. You withdraw crypto, no fee. No fee at all. You'll pay your network fee, XRP Ledger 12 drops fee. No other fee. Can people in Canada use them? No, Canada's not available. In fact, it's something that I have had on my list. I need to get it done. Because I already found a few solutions for Canadians, and Coinbase right now is available. I think Kraken, Crypto.com. There's a few other platforms there too. But I was looking at some legal and estate planning resources up in Canada too, tax planning resources in Canada. And so I'm in the middle of kind of adding a couple community resources for our Canadians. The other thing to be ready for is our UK audience. If you're in the UK, Caleb and Brown is coming. They should be live. Oh gosh, what did Jim tell me? I forget what Jim told me. I think that they're shooting to go live here at the beginning of August in the UK. So if you're in the UK, get ready to go. It'll be a completely different setup. There's different rules and regulations on how it gets marketed and all this stuff. But Jim is actually a big part of the UK rollout. And so he's been giving me the scoop on that. And that should be live here within the next week or two. So UK, Caleb and Brown is flipping the switch for you guys. Get ready for that one. That'll be great. Okay. Is New York available? New York's no platforms available in New York, man. I think Gemini, there's a few, but your options are limited in New York. Absolutely. Article 589, look it up. Yeah, I talked about it last week in Japan. Going to be very interesting to watch what the Bank of Japan does here next. When is the next BOJ meeting? Okay, so we have ours tomorrow and they have theirs Thursday and Friday. Okay. Now, it's widely expected that they're going to maintain rates at 1%, and it's widely expected that the Fed is going to hold rates. But that's what we're going to be covering tomorrow. So, as we wrap up tonight's show, make sure you have subscribed, hit that notification bell so you don't miss our update tomorrow. We'll have full coverage of how the market reacts to the Federal Reserve interest rate decision. And if you appreciated tonight's live show, please help us out by liking and hyping. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you thought about the show. If you didn't get a question in and you want your question answered, or maybe you want to suggest a topic for a next video, just drop it in the comment down below. Tomorrow morning when I wake up, every single day I have to wake up and delete all the scammers that are in the comments. And they suck. But that's part of my morning routine is wake up and come delete all the scammers. But in the middle of that, I will read your comments. So if you didn't get a question or comment answered, if there's something else you want me to discuss, if you want to critique me, if you want to tell me that you're not happy, that's okay. Use my comment section down below to vent and tell us how you really feel. Because I'm just as frustrated as you are, my friend. But I'm equally as bullish and excited about the opportunity that we have, the bull run that's coming, the Clarity Act that will pass eventually, and the high prices for XRP and these digital assets that potentially awaits us. It's going to be fun. Appreciate you guys for tuning in tonight. We're going to wrap it up here. Thank you once again for liking, hyping, sharing it out far and wide. Make sure you've subscribed. Hit that notification bell. We'll see you back Thursday for the live show, and we'll be back tomorrow for a full update with the Federal Reserve interest rate decision. Have a good night, everybody. God bless.